would you please be upstanding for the arrival of Her Excellency Professor the Honourable Margaret Gardner, Governor of Victoria.
Please be seated. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which Government House and its grounds sit, the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and the Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today. Your Excellency, I invite you to present the honours and awards in the Order of Australia. To be officers in the General Division, Bill Henson, for distinguished service to the visual arts as a photographer and to the promotion of Australian culture. The late Reverend Robert John Maguire, to be received by his niece, Peter Knights, in recognition of his distinguished service to the community, particularly through social welfare initiatives and organisations. The late Dr. Peter John Marr, to be received by his wife, Marilyn Marr, in recognition of his distinguished service to gynecological medicine, to medical research and education, and to professional societies. Emeritus Professor Peter Francis MacDonald, for distinguished service to demographic research, to policy development, and to professional associations. James Andrew Charles Mackenzie, for distinguished service to business and to public administration through leadership roles. To receive the Medal of the Order of Australia in the General Division, Flavia Gobbo, for service to business and to public administration. To be members in the General Division, Professor Mark Considine, for significant service to education and to the political and social sciences. Susan Darn, for significant service to business, to the finance sector, and to the community. Christine Coter, for significant service to education and to the community of Victoria. Amanda Gome, for significant service to media, to business, and to women. Dr. Jennifer Ann Gowan, for significant service to medicine as a pharmacist, to professional societies, and to community health. Dr. Jennifer Helen Gray, for significant service to wildlife management and to zoological industry organisations. Jordan Green, for significant service to business, particularly through angel investing and to professional associations. Dr. Ian James Hardingham, for significant service to the law and legal reform in Victoria. Colin Hisco, for significant service to people with a disability through advocacy roles. Jeffrey William Hone, for significant service to the legal profession and to charitable and educational foundations. Dr. Evelyn Havenga, for significant service to medicine through health, informatics, and digital transformation. Gregory Joseph Johnson, for significant service to community health through diabetes governance, reform, and education. Associate Professor Nicola Mary Kilpatrick, for significant service to dentistry through a range of roles and associations. The Reverend Canon Professor Dorothy Ann Lee, for significant service to the Anglican Church of Australia. Peter John Lewinsky, for significant service to the community, to public administration, and to business. Jimmy Liascos, for significant service to business and to industry as a leader and mentor. The late Dr. James Richard May, to be received by his wife, Christine Mary May, in recognition of his significant service to mining research and governance and to the community. Sharon McGowan, for significant service to community health, particularly stroke prevention and awareness. Dr. William John Mackay, for significant service to medical administration in the field of nuclear medicine. Emeritus Professor Pauline Ann Nestor, for significant service to tertiary education and to research. Emeritus Professor Andrew James Sinclair, for significant service to community health in the field of nutrition. The Right Reverend Alison Menzies Taylor, for significant service to the Anglican Church and to conservation. To receive the Conspicuous Service Cross, Squadron Leader Malith Jasinga, for outstanding achievement in cybersecurity and information and communications technology management for the Royal Australian Air Force. To receive the Australian Fire Service Medal for Distinguished Fire Service, Catherine Grosby. Stephen Roy Grant. Paula Louise Grosvold. Dawn Hartog. William Gordon Johnstone. John Katakouzinos. Costa Katsikis. Damien Paul O'Toole. Ross Michael Sullivan. To receive the Ambulance Service Medal for Distinguished Ambulance Service, Lindsay Norman Bent. Barry Clifford Curtin. Ian Walsh. Alan Wilkins. Joanne Kate Wilton. To receive the Medal of the Order of Australia in the General Division, Graham Alexander Grant for service to the finance and superannuation sectors. Frank Greenstein for service to the community through political engagement. David Maynard Greenwood for service to the performing arts and to business. Barbara Denise Grove for service to youth through Girl Guides. Elizabeth Frances Grove for service to the community of Hobsons Bay. Georgina Sarah Gubbins for service to primary industry and to the community. Evelyn Marie Halls for service to sports administration and to fencing. Isabel May Harkensi for service to the community through a range of organisations. Lisa Hasker, for service to sports administration. Paul Anthony Heed, for service to architecture and to the community. Wendy Joy Hewitt, for service to the community of Warrack Nabil and to education. Peter Raymond Hill, for service to the community through a range of organisations. Dr. Andrew James Hogan, for service to the community of Seymour. D. Honeychurch, for service to community health. Denise Highlands, for service to community radio. Clinical Associate Professor Jenny Louise Hinson, for service to palliative care medicine. To Nina Rochelle Joel, for service to the community through social welfare initiatives. The late Gregory Colin Jones, to be received by his wife, Mavis Lorraine Jones, in recognition of his service to the community of Mildura. William Richard Jones, for service to the community through a range of organisations. Brian Francis Keenan, for service to the community of Yarrawonga. Rosemary Elise Kennett, for service to the community of Newmerker. Carol Denise Knight, for service to local government and to the community of the Greater Hume region. Sandra Elizabeth Knight, for service to people who are blind or who have low vision. Devora Ann Komisarov, for service to the Jewish community of Victoria. Colin Henry Kreiser, for service to the LGBTQ community. Dr. Tamara Kwarteng, for service to the Pacific Islands through public health programs. Joanne Kwok, for service to the youth and to community of Bayside. Loc Hu Lam, for service to the Vietnamese community of Victoria. Dr. Andrew Dennis Lawrence, for service to the chiropractic profession. Nicole Lee, for service to people with disability and to women. Donald Charles Leeson, for service to youth and to the community. Peter Derek Levy, for service to business and to the community. Dr. Christine Ann Longman, for service to medicine through a range of roles. Rachel Ann Lynch, for service to hockey. Dawn Lorraine MacDonald, for service to golf and to the community. Christine Mail, for service to the community through disaster response roles. John Mail, for service to the community through disaster response roles. David Philip McCabe, for service to the community of Wangaratta. Dr. Forbes McCain, for service to medicine. Timothy Ross MacLeod, for service to music through pipe bands. Cyril James McMaster, to be received by his daughter, Bernadette Lipson, in recognition of his service to Australian rules football in the Barwon South West region. Frank William Miller, for service to the community through a range of organisations. Shane Robert Neves, for service to aged welfare. Timothy John North, for service to rugby union and to the law. Dr. Paul Gerard Power, for service to psychology. Raoul David Salter, for service to the community through a range of organisations. To receive the Conspicuous Service Medal, Wing Commander Dr. Lindsay Brian Carey, for devotion to duty in moral injury research and the development of resources and training to support Australian Defence Force personnel. Please join Her Excellency in congratulating all today's recipients. Your Excellency, I now invite you to address us.
Nick Stakos, Parliamentary Secretary to the Premier, representing the Premier. Gavin Freeman, Commissioner, Fire Rescue Victoria. Joe Plummer, Deputy Chair, representing the Chair, Country Fire Authority. Group Captain Lloyd Selleck, representing the Senior Air Force Officer, Victoria. Teresa De Fazio, Committee Member, the Order of Australia Association, Victoria Branch. Distinguished guests, of which there are very many in the room, and particularly those we've just honoured. Let me begin by acknowledging that we meet here on the unceded lands of the people of the Eastern Kulin Nations, the Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung peoples, and pay my respects to their elders past and present, and to any other elders who may be with us today. It is a great pleasure to welcome you all to Government House. And despite the more than one person who said, "Do your cheeks hurt from smiling so much?" the answer is no. It is a very joyous occasion. Order of Australia investiture ceremonies have been held in this historic ballroom since the introduction of the Australian Honours System in 1975. Now, of course, the ballroom well precedes the introduction of the Australian Honours System and might seem to speak to another time and place. But I often reflect as I'm standing there looking out in these investiture ceremonies how appropriate it is that something so grand is here to actually be a place in which we recognise the wonderful contributions that we see before us today in an investiture ceremony. And recipients today have been recognised for their work in charities, sport, research, religious communities, the creative arts, education, health, many, many areas, and you've heard so many of them today. And of course, today we've also seen a very significant number of people who are honoured for the work they do in particular vital areas of community security and protection, you might argue, particularly, for example, in the fire services and the ambulance services. So there are days in these investitures when we see a particular slice of the services on which we rely as a community, as well as recognising the great diversity of contributions that people make to the world at large and obviously to Australia and Victoria. In the face of such a long history of awards, and I have to say, when I say that, I feel a little odd, because I have to say 1975 doesn't seem that long ago to me, but it clearly is to many among us. In the face of such a long history, it's unusual for those that we recognise to represent a different part of the community. But communities change, and so do those honoured, and so they should, as the community changes. But this is only the second time in the Order's history that more than 50% of those honoured are women. And I'd have to say that 50% women have been with us for a lot longer than the Australian Honours System. In 1975, Phyllis Gratian was one of the first Victorian women to receive an AM, and her AM was for service to social welfare. She'd done significant work in Victoria's blind community, establishing the Lady Nell Seeing Eye Dogs School and Rehabilitation Centre, which is better known today as Seeing Eye Dogs Australia. Many Victorian women followed in her footsteps. In 2001, Dr. Gabrielle Medley was recognised for service to medicine and women's health through the Victorian Cytology Service. Having escaped Nazi persecution as a child, Medley went on to become Medical Director of the Victorian Cytology Service and oversaw the introduction of the Australian Cervical Screening Program. That program is credited with having halved the mortality rate amongst cervical cancer patients since 1991. And a more recent example is Antoinette Braybrook, who in 2023 was recognised for significant service to the law and to family violence prevention. A Kuku Yalanji woman, Braybrook is the co-founding member and chief executive officer of JIRA, an Aboriginal community-controlled organisation that provides legal services and support to First Peoples affected by family violence. You can see in that range of citations the range of areas that are honoured, and you can see how many other areas of significant contribution have been honoured here today. It's important that the honours recognise the range of the community, and that we also recognise the many different ways in which people contribute to the overall well-being of our community and make significant contribution to how we all are better. Everything from performing arts and visual arts all the way through the things that go to the services that we provide, the way we build the society we're in. They're all important contributions, and it's important that we're recognised. And it's important that we recognise that we're not recognising a moment. Because as you've heard, and you can hear it most particularly when you hear people recognised for work with a range of organisations, which means can't work out how to write all of them down on one page because people have been contributing in so many different ways, or you recognise that people are being recognised for a lifetime of contribution. We are recognising just that, the lifetime of contribution. Sometimes we're good at recognising the moment of bravery, the moment of achievement. But so much of what people do that amounts to a lot goes unrecognised and unheralded. It's important that we look at the totality of a contribution and that we as a community recognise it in this way. And we rely on all of you to make sure that we do recognise it, because we recognise the diversity of the community and the significance of their contributions when we nominate them, because there's not someone else out there with a magic wand. The Australian Honours System is a recognition by the community of what we value and why we think those contributions are so significant for us. And so when we don't nominate, very important contributions aren't recognised. We don't recognise the breadth. We don't recognise the depth. We don't recognise the diversity of contribution. So can I just urge all of you, those who've just been so recognised and those who are sitting watching, to think about nominating people, because that significant, and it usually is a lifetime of contribution, is worth recognising. It's worth recognising to celebrate the individuals as we have today. It's worth recognising for what we are saying to ourselves about ourselves as a community, and that alone is worth the work of nominating people. We might have hoped it would take less than half a century for the number of women being honoured to reflect our population, but we can see that we are getting better at reflecting the range of contribution in our community by those in our community. Today's recipients remind us that we have people from all walks of life that create change and make a great contribution and make us the society I think we wish to be. The Australian Honours System should represent all parts of our community. It is an Australian honours system and it should represent all of Australia. So let me urge you once again to nominate people. Let me also once again say congratulations to all those receiving an award today. You hear only a snippet of what they've contributed by the citation when they walk across the stage. Many of you here know in depth what one or more of them have contributed, and you know, therefore, what that small set of words masks in terms of what has been done. So let us congratulate all of them, and let me say to all of the people awarded today, I'm looking forward to seeing what you all do next. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. If you are able to do so, would you please stand and join in the singing of the first verse of the national anthem and remain standing for the departure of the Governor? Thank you.
That concludes official proceedings for today. The State Apartments will now be open for viewing. On behalf of the Governor, I invite you to stay and to enjoy the hospitality of Government House. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.